Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 65 for September 22nd, 2017. Whoa, what happened to my voice there?
Wow.
That's not fair. It just sneaks up on me. I don't know why. I guess I'm just not used to talking anymore. Maybe it's something I'm taking. I don't know what I'm taking. Anyway, welcome everybody to the Windows Central Podcast. This week we'll be, of course, covering, if you've never joined us, we talk about Microsoft and Windows and the related ecosystem and Xbox and all that cool jazz. This week we'll be talking about the mixed reality event that's happening in San Francisco. We'll also talk about the store rebrand. So if you don't know, they rebranded this store. We're going to just mostly talk about the controversy around it, which is always hilarious. We'll talk about new builds, of course, as we're finally heading into the last few weeks of the Redstone 3 update. Is it Redstone 3 now? Yeah, Redstone 3, also known as the Fall Creators Update. We'll also talk about Andromeda, as Zach has finally shed some light on what Andromeda is, though despite his efforts, there's still a ton of confusion, and hopefully he'll go into more detail today. And then we're going to talk about my Xbox Media remote rant and how I think Microsoft is really falling behind Amazon and Apple when it comes to the living room, and there's really no excuse for it. And then finally, we'll close with the UK store opening for Microsoft. A really big deal, especially since, well, half of our staff is from the UK, and a good portion of our audiences are also from the UK, so this will be really a big deal. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday? First fall?
Yes, it's now officially autumn or fall.
Autumn, yes.
So we're in the season for the Awesome Creators Update. But yes, I'm not too bad. How are you?
You know, hanging in there. It's cooled off finally. It was we've been getting hit, unfortunately, with the remnants of the hurricane.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so after they hit they destroy the South, they come up here, and it's just inconvenient. So obviously we're not suffering up here, but it's now it's turning into fall at least, so it's been pretty nice. But busy week, lots of stuff. I've been getting lots of cool accessories in. Apparently, I'm going to be reviewing a gaming chair pretty soon from eWin, so that's going to be, yeah, I'm kind of curious about researching chairs, and now I got to look into that, but look for that in the next few weeks. Overall, good stuff, but let's talk about the first topic of the day here, the mixed reality event happening October 3rd in San Francisco. This is kind of a weird event because I feel like, I don't know, my gut tells me Microsoft knows they need to sell this. And, you know, I went to a private briefing a few weeks ago, you know, and then Microsoft announced through their blog, you know, these new headsets coming to Windows 10 in the fall and sale pricing, and it was a push for Asus, and they talked about the update a bit. They announced a few game titles. They also announced really big news, which was Steam support. So now some of those titles will work with mixed reality as well. So all good stuff. And I don't know why, like, they could have left it at that, but now they're hosting like a public event in San Francisco, and Alex Kipman is going to be there. And that's the first time he's done stuff with HoloLens before, like at Build and at other events, but we never had like an Alex Kipman event, like a Panos Surface event. And that's what this kind of is. And it's kind of interesting. I just don't really know what they're going to talk about. Or what's going to be new, I should say, if there's anything new. I feel like it's more just we're going to have a public announcement of this, get some press coverage, and go into a little bit more detail. I have a belief that they'll announce more titles and have some more news, but I don't know. It's kind of weird. I will be there, though, for those curious.
Yeah, I'm not expecting any big announcements from this event. I don't even think it's being streamed. I think it's just invite only for those attending. So I think what they're just going to do is they're going to invite some sort of general press, people who wouldn't necessarily cover Microsoft usually, and say, hey, you've seen what Apple are doing. Here's what we're doing, and we want you to cover this as well. I imagine that's just what it's going to be. So they're going to talk about, you know, the new mixed reality stuff, Cliff's house, the new headsets, what you can do, the Steam VR stuff again. And maybe they'll announce a couple of new headsets from OEMs. I mean, who knows? But I wouldn't expect them to announce like a HoloLens version 2 or their own mixed reality headset at this year. So...
yeah, definitely not. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you would think it would be kind of cool if they did tease like a HoloLens.
Yeah, I mean, we might see HoloLens demos I don't know. See, I don't know because they could.
See, I
Because
feel like
maybe
though,
this
they
is
did
them.
that. If they did that, they would detract from the message of mixed
Yeah,
reality.
no, you're right. Even though HoloLens is technically part of mixed reality, I think right now they just want to push the VR side of it more than the AR.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, if they got up there and did like, here's our mixed reality stuff, and then, oh, by the way, here's a sneak peek of what's coming to HoloLens. You know, what would dominate the press, right? Like, oh my God, the HoloLens stuff. So
Yeah,
I don't think that would happen.
they could talk about the Xbox VR stuff because I know that they've been very quiet about that this year. They might be planning to detail their efforts, which I assume will be happening next year now for the Project Scorpio stuff, the Xbox One X stuff.
Definitely a possibility, but I don't know. We'll find out in a couple weeks. I just actually today sent Zach a mixed reality headset, which as we're sorely learning with Brexit apparently, and shipping costs to London, it's super expensive.
Stupid, that's what it is.
Yes, but we'll be definitely doing a lot with the mixed reality stuff, including whether or not it's worth your money in the coming weeks and months, of course, as the stuff develops. I'm 60-40 on the mixed reality stuff. It's cool. It's not super expensive, so it's not like people are going to be having to spend a ton to get into it. But it's not something I'm still picking up. Of course, I need a better setup here in order to get it done. But it's not something I put on every day and like, oh, cool, it's mixed reality time, you know? Maybe that'll change in the future, but
well, again, the problem with the first implementations of mixed reality is that it's all VR. We've already talked about the issues of VR in the past. It's not very productive. It's very much a more entertaining sort of thing you do rather than say, I'm going to put my VR headset on now to do work in Office. Like you're not really going to do that because obviously you can't see the keyboard for one, and on sort of a virtual keyboard in the air or in the 3D environment isn't really going to be helpful in that scenario. The AR side is a lot more useful in that regard, but again, Microsoft isn't pushing that right now. HoloLens is still $3,000. It's not a consumer product in any way, shape, or form. So the mixed reality push that they're doing this year, it is interesting. I think it's for the diehards more than anyone, or at least just showing the world that we're serious about this 3D stuff. We're not just having a joke and paint 3D. We are serious about it. Perhaps that's why they're pushing it like this.
I mean, I think it's the right thing for them to do in the sense like it'd be weird for them to ignore that whole category, right? Mm. So they have to do something, and I think what they're doing is right. It's actually a smart approach. It just still feels weird. I just know at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, I'm going to be like, do I want to slap a headset on and play a video game or just crash on my couch and play Destiny 2? Well, I'm going to play Destiny 2. That could change, but I don't know. It's going to be an interesting category. This is such a weird field because everybody intuitively knows there's something here. There's something cool about this stuff that's different, obviously, than using a 2D experience. At the same time, no one has like figured it out yet, exactly to crack that. What's going to make it like something common that we all adopt. And I think but you can't figure that out unless you try, innovate, and experiment. And I think at least with UWP and Windows 10, this gives OEMs and consumers and developers a platform to do that experimentation with. And, we'll see, I guess, where it takes us. But
I feel like this would be a much more interesting sort of push if they were pushing holographic displays rather than head-mounted displays. Like, I don't know, you've seen it in the movies, like displays that like pop-up holograms, which of course is pretty much impossible today unless you like set up lights in your room to do it. But imagine having a monitor, for example, that's a normal monitor, but then the windows aren't only in the screen, but they can also float out the screen as well, so you can look behind them and stuff. Like just small things like that would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why they're building all the stuff that they're doing, because that future will come someday. Like, there is research being done right now and little demos of using lasers, like thousands of little lasers that shoot around and create holograms. And you can look at this research online. It's very much prototype stages. The lasers it's super teeny, right? So it's only like the size of a quarter, but they are creating standalone free holograms, so that stuff is being worked on. Everybody knows this stuff can be done in theory. And so I guess it's kind of a cool idea that like when that happens, Windows will be there and ready for it.
Yeah.
But we're still talking, probably 10 years out, but you got to start somewhere with this stuff. So,
see, the only problem I can see with their current strategy is that Apple are just beating them to it. of the AR kit stuff.
Right.
More people will be using the AR stuff through their iPhones than Microsoft or Windows ecosystem users are going to be through headsets. It's simple as.
Right.
It's not a great sign for UWP developers.
Yeah, this gets back to the problem that Microsoft was always having, which is the personal computer, ironically, is no longer an actual computer. It's your smartphone. That's your most personal computer. And ARKit, although a lot of stuff we've seen so far has been kind of gimmicky and stuff like that, it works very well. And you're going to see, I think, I'm already seeing more creativity from developers, or a lot of creativity from developers using ARKit than I think I have seen with HoloLens, just due to the fact that HoloLens is in fewer hands, and you have Apple with the iPhone in a much larger ecosystem. And, that could be a problem long term. Long term for Apple, though, they don't have a more powerful system that can also do more than that, holding a phone up in front of you. So they need to still solve a problem. It's like, okay, well, how do we go beyond this? Because holding a phone in front of you as a second screen, it's definitely cool. And for small things, it's definitely awesome on the go. It's literally AR on the go is really great, but how do you get a bigger, more regular experience?
As well, I think it's much more approachable to normal people just to be able to hold your phone up rather than having to put on a whole head mounted display, which is a whole other thing, really. Again, the benefit that Apple has is that ARKit right now is more like an extra thing that the iPhone can do. It's not the entire thing. Right now, for Windows users, if you want to experience this virtual reality stuff, the mixed reality stuff, you have to buy a $300 headset. Whereas for Apple users and people using the iPhone, they've already got the phone and, oh no, now it can do AR as well. That's pretty sweet. Let's try that out. It's a very different sort of approach that both companies are taking right now.
Yeah. If you haven't seen, I tweeted a video that someone did with ARKit. It was demonstrating how they were solving Sudoku puzzles. They just held it up in front of the puzzle, and it immediately just saw it, and then it saw the puzzle, solved it, and overlaid all the answers right on the puzzle. And then as the camera moved, the answers stayed there, and it was super impressive. Could you imagine? There's just a lot of opportunity there, for that kind of technology combined with AI in the cloud. And you don't want to necessarily do all the computing on the phone, but when you start bringing in cloud computing, you can do some pretty intense problem solving just using that camera. I don't know. It's an interesting field. Everybody's doing their own take on it. I'm not sold on any one yet. Everybody has their pros and cons, but hopefully on October 3rd, Microsoft will. I think they're also going to talk a little bit more about the future and what's coming with this stuff and what we should expect next. I believe the way some of that stuff was worded is going to be sort of a tease of the next milestone that they want to kind of achieve with this stuff. So there may be some also forward-looking announcements on October 3rd, but I'll be there. Not sure Mark Wynn will be with us. He's got another event I'm going to be having him cover instead, but pay attention to that day and we'll see what happens. Let's talk about this week's rage, because everybody has to have an opinion on everything. So evidently, once again, if you're in the release preview ring of the Windows Insider program, you should have received an update for the store, which is always hilarious that the store can update the store. And it was renamed from Windows Store to Microsoft Store, including with a new funky logo. And that logo now actually adds a splash of color. I find this stuff funny because I kind of don't care. It's okay, Windows Store, Microsoft Store. Makes sense with the Microsoft Store if you think about it long term. If that thing is going to sell more than, now it's selling movies. Now it has books. Now it's got music. Now it's got apps. It's got games for PC. It's got games for Xbox. And why not put in the online store stuff in there as well, right? So you could buy PC peripherals, new laptops, and all that kind of stuff. Sure, call it the Microsoft Store. But there are two aspects that people have strong opinions on, which is the name. Some are really upset about it. Oh, someone told me now people are going to get confused between it and the actual Microsoft stores, which to me is weird. I don't know how do you confuse those? But the other thing is that people have strong opinions about the icon. Someone was actually telling me it's disgusting. I was like, okay. What do you think about all this and its
I
long-term
actually really
implications?
like the icon. It's a nice icon. I mean, some people have pointed out that maybe it's the angle in which the icon's been designed is slightly off for the handles for the bag. If for those who haven't
Right.
seen it, basically the icon is a bag with the colored Microsoft logo. People are upset mainly at
Versus
the
the bag with a non-colored
right.
logo.
And
Drastic difference.
people are pretty much upset at the either the angle of the icon or the colors in the icon, because a lot of Windows 10 icons, our default icons anyway, are monochromatic, whatever you call it. They're
Yeah.
monochrome, and which means they're colorless. The only one I can think of that is colored is Edge, and I think Paint 3D has also got a colored icon. Everything else is
Skype.
pure white, and Skype. Everything else is a pure white icon. Now the store app has 4 colors in it, the Microsoft logo colors. So I can see people saying it stands out a little bit. It doesn't really match the rest of the iconography in Windows 10. At the same time, I think Microsoft are trying to get away from being pure monochrome icons now anyway. I think Paint 3D hasn't got a monochrome icon. And
And Microsoft starting with I believe it was with the creators update or maybe the update before that. This idea of the store is super important to Microsoft. And, for our audience, the store, they probably, I assume, are familiar with it and use it. And the only reason I put that caveat out there is because a lot of people don't use it. If regular PC users, just normies, as you call them, who got an upgrade to Windows 10, they turn on their computer, they use the browser, maybe an email client, they download their familiar apps that they want. And they don't really crack open that store, and they don't know about those apps, that whole thing. And it sounds kind of weird to me because I'm in the store all the time, but Microsoft has talked about this in the past. It's one reason why the store is pinned to the taskbar and it's in the start menu. Like they try to make it visible so that you see it and want to click it for discoverability purposes. And adding that little splash of color helps that. I also think it looks better because I don't really like monochromatic look all the time. And so I kind of like the way it looks. But that's part of the reason, I think, is that they're trying to bridge that gap between users who don't know about the store, why they want it, and, people who already are using it.
yeah, I mean, people who are complaining about this are probably the same people who complain about all the little things. People who were complaining about the acrylic noise in the earlier Redstone 3 builds
Right.
are probably the same people complaining about the icon here. I honestly don't think it's a bad icon. And to be fair, an icon that stands out a little bit, as you said, it is probably a better idea for the store because Microsoft needs more people using that store. If Microsoft wants developers to target it, people need to click on the store. The more people clicking on the store, the more Microsoft can say, hey, we have, I don't know, so and so many people using the Windows Store now. And then more developers go, oh, that's a market I should probably be targeting. But until that happens, we're not going to get any apps. So make the icon as ugly as possible so everyone clicks it.
I just think like I said, I saw it. I was like, okay, cool. I don't have enough energy in my life to form a strong opinion on this. It's just like, but every week, there's got to be that little change. As Zach and I were joking around before the podcast, people were, telling me they were very upset at when the store had check for updates to just get updates. Like a lot of people were like, here's why that was a bad move. And I'm like, and now we're weeks on, and thankfully I'm still not hearing complaints about that because the world moves on. Yeah.
The move to Microsoft Store as the name of the app is an interesting one because I assume this is because they're going to eventually, like you said, start putting more than just digital content in the store, things like that. Because already in the Windows Store, you can, when it was called the Windows Store, which it still is for most people, this change is only being tested in the release previewing, by the way. If you type in Surface into the search box, you get a listing for Surface devices, which takes you to Edge and into the online Microsoft Store.
Yeah.
So I imagine what they're going to do at some point is just make it so it's all in the app instead.
And what's really funny about that is and assuming they're going to put the Microsoft's online store into this store, and I really hope they do. And like you said, they already kind of have that thing where you type in Surface and it brings you up information that takes you to Edge. That's already kind of giving you that link to do it. That sounds super like simple and intuitive, but this is actually kind of funny. So I've been toying around with the new iPhone. I don't have it yet, but I'm like looking at it, and I was just like, one of those, like, wait, can I just go to the store and pick it up today? Because barriers of entry. If I could just go to the store, and so I went online. And they said they don't have in-store pickup as a choice Apple for some reason, which is weird. They always have, and they don't have it this time. And so I was like, wait, I remember Renee Ritchie, our iMore editor, saying you can order and reserve a phone through your own iPhone. And it's kind of like sick, right? It's kind of like, hey, iPhone, I'm going to order your replacement through you. It's a weird thing. But then I was like, okay. So I launched the App Store. I figured maybe it would be in there. And I typed in iPhone 8 and I got like apps. And it's not there. And you have to actually download the Apple Store app. And to me, that was a discoverability problem. I actually had to go online and look that up and be like, oh, there's an Apple Store app. And there was no, like, when you open the App Store, it doesn't, like, tell you that or give you any, like, hey, we have a new iPhone 8, here's how to get it. Like, there was nothing like that. And so Apple really hasn't solved that problem either. And, if Microsoft can actually do that, I think it's a smart decision. So it goes to show you that not everybody does everything right with this stuff.
You know what? The name change as well could actually open the door to a Microsoft Store app on other platforms as well. If Microsoft were to build a Microsoft Store app, which sold, its hardware through, I don't know, iOS and Android, but also had the ability for you to download apps to your Xbox or to your PC from your iPhone or Android, that'd be pretty interesting.
So, as a comment, yes, but the iOS App Store is not the same as the Apple Store. No kidding. I'm aware of that. That's exactly my point. Why not just Apple have an Apple Store app and it does everything?
Yeah.
Because imagine you just have one store and you can get your apps, you can get your games, you can get your music, and then you slide over and be like, oh, look, let me get this new iPhone case. Why would you want to do that, Apple? Because you'd want to sell things? No, make me go down. And it's ironic that Apple didn't have that app preloaded on my phone of all the junkware apps that they put on there, all the stupid things. So I had to go and get it. So, I mean, no, this Apple doesn't get a pass here. It's bad. And if Microsoft can figure this out, I'm all for it. So it's about commerce, people. People buy things. That's the point of all this.
People don't buy things if you make them work for it.
It's true. It's totally true. Just like the Nintendo, the new one, the Shift. What is it called?
I don't care.
Switch.
I don't
That's
care.
It. I know.
All right. So, are we done with the store rebrand story?
Yes,
I think
we're done with the store.
All right, let's move on to some more new stuff. New builds. Microsoft are now at the very, I've said this like 3 weeks in a row now, at the very, very last bit of development of Resident 3. Seriously, we're like the last week of development. I hope by the end of next week, there should be an RTM build that has been compiled and signed off on. So Microsoft have announced today, Donna Sakar on Twitter, she said, nothing for skip ahead till mid next week as we are very busy with Resident 3 right now. And that from here on out, they aren't going to be teasing new builds. They're just going to be firing them at us whenever they deem fit to be released. So I'm sure we'll get blog posts with changelogs still, but they're not going to be like, hey, we're going to release a build in 2 hours. They're just going to just say, hey, here's a build we just put out now. Go and have a look at it. I imagine some engineers will be working through the weekend. Usually they do. And when it's at crunch time, which is what we call it now. Yeah, it's a pretty exciting time. No new features in any of these builds. Microsoft did re-highlight the fact that you can use Cortana now to send web pages to your PC, which is the phone linking stuff, which is nice. But apart from that, everything is just bug fixes. There's not been a Resident 4 build since, I don't know, last week now? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was last week.
Which is fine. Not much is going on in the Resident 4 RS pre-release branch at this point. As Donna said, Microsoft mainly focused on making sure Resident 3 is as good as it can be for release on October 17th. So RTM will likely be signed off on next week. Then I imagine, depending on when it gets signed off, we'll either get the RTM build later the next week or the week after that for testing. And I don't know if Microsoft will be open about saying this is the build that they'll be rolling out. They never have been in the past, although I think someone from the insider team did say this time that they will be clear when they roll it out that they are intending for that build to be released to the public. And I think insiders' feedback will determine the RTM as well. If they roll out a build and insiders say, well, this is pretty much good enough, then they can say, right, well, we'll sign off on that one.
That's why I rarely understood the whole, like, when a build comes out, people are like, is this the RTM build? It's like that the whole reason they're putting it out there is for you to test it so then they can decide if that's the RTM build. Like, you can't release it and then be like, oh, that's RTM. Like we know ahead of time, because they could be releasing something and it has like a major bug or something that they get a lot of feedback on saying it's wrong.
How I believe it works is that they do compile the RTM internally before they fly it to insiders. They say, right, we want this to be the RTM.
Right.
If something goes bad once it hits insiders, then they can obviously compile a new build.
Right.
But I believe internally they'd make the decision of this number here will be the RTM build before it rolls out. Right. And then, like, I guess the last checks are when insiders start getting it and they start seeing that feedback data come in and whatever else.
So yeah, they have a tentative RTM that's validated, and then it's like, okay, that was the RTM. Well, we're going to go roll with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's good stuff. I got to update some of my laptops to it. It was funny. The updates came so fast this week that I didn't even get to restart my studio with the previous one. So now I got to keep updating everything. I don't even know what version I'm on right now. So
yeah. All right, so moving on to our next story. We'll fly through these stories now. Andromeda OS, yes. So if you've been following along Windows Central, or pretty much anyone who covers Microsoft over the last several months, you've probably had the codename Andromeda popping up here and there. And while not for a long while, not much was known about it. Even I was struggling to find out what this Andromeda stuff was. And it gets more confusing because apparently there is internal hardware being prototyped under the name Andromeda as well, which we believe is going to be some kind of mobile device if Microsoft ever decides to turn that into a real product. But then there's also a software side, which is being referred to as Andromeda OS, although people just refer to it as Andromeda as well, so hence more confusion. But yes, this Andromeda OS stuff is the next steps in Microsoft's One Windows vision, as far as I can tell and from what people have been telling me. This will help Microsoft kick off its mobile efforts, which, again, we've heard what will be starting next year, sometime in 2018, with some kind of new mobile device. And what Andromeda OS essentially is the next steps in modularizing Windows. As Windows has been modular for quite a while now, some elements of it have anyway. I wouldn't say Windows 10 today is entirely modular. That's just simply untrue. But what Andromeda OS is doing is taking the next steps in making it far more modular than it is today. So, for example, what Andromeda OS does is it gives OEMs and Microsoft a universal base, just like OneCore, that can be built upon. So no longer do OEMs have to pick between pre-existing product variants with Andromeda. So today, if you're a hardware maker such as HP and you build a laptop running Windows 10, you only get to choose between the select variants that Microsoft has already built internally, such as Windows 10 Home, Windows 10 Pro, Windows 10 S, Windows Server, Windows 10 IoT, Windows Surface Hub, and there's obviously Windows 10 Mobile and a few others. And that can sometimes be very limiting to OEMs. For example, what if HP wants to build a Chromebook-like device that has Windows 10, but just UWP apps, no Win32 program support or anything? They just want UWP only. They can't do that because Microsoft doesn't offer a version of Windows 10 like that. What Andromeda OS does is allows OEMs to say, right, let's get the universal base of Windows 10. Let's build up a version that has only UWP apps only and no Win32 program, similar to Windows 10 Mobile, except with a desktop environment instead of a phone environment. And it makes Windows 10 much more flexible. So Microsoft can say, let's build a Surface phone. It's a device that folds. It's a 2-in-1. It's a phone and a tablet. So let's give it Win32 program support in addition to phone-type features. Right now, they couldn't do that because if you want Win32 on a phone, you'd have to put full Windows 10 on it. And that's a little bit overkill for what a phone-like device is going to be. So what this basically does is make it modular. It's a much more modular platform for Windows 10 and hardware makers. And again, some of this functionality has been possible in the past with embedded stuff and whatever, but this is the next steps in making many more components of Windows modular. And that's very exciting. I think this is going to change how OEMs and even Microsoft build their devices in the future. It allows them to put Windows on even less capable devices, such as smartwatches. As we all know, the Band 2 or the Band 3 even was cancelled, apparently, because they couldn't get Windows running on it. With Andromeda OS, this should make it so an OEM or Microsoft says, right, here's the base. Let's just give it this module so it works on smartwatch. We don't need to give it anything extra because it doesn't need it. It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, so I'm just responding to someone in comments. Just someone pointed out, but there's already Windows 10S.
What's Windows 10S got to do with it?
Exactly, nothing. Windows 10S is Windows 10 Pro. It's the full Windows 10 Pro. It just has a block on it. That's the only difference. So that's why there's that whole discount thing. We've talked about this before. So what Zach's talking about is the fact, if you want to run just UWP apps without the Win32 subsystem in there as well, that's what we're talking about. It's being able to pull out those things or adding in telephony or something like that.
Yes.
So there's this idea of like being, and this stuff is complicated because none of us, I know Zach is, and I know myself aren't OS architects. Like, we don't build operating systems, and very few people do. So we're learning this stuff as we go through about the different components, and we've passed that stuff along to you guys during this trip. One core, the core of the OS, but it's really, the aspects of the kernel and stuff like that, how all that works. There is UWP, which is the platform part. So that's the software that people develop that runs on top of the OS. And now there's also C Shell, which is the shells, which is the visible UI components. And then there's going to be Andromeda, which is this idea that subsystems within the OS that are running underneath, sort of the plumbing, are now being apparently broken apart so that they can be, work like Legos, and they can be pulled out and put back in. And that's what makes up an OS. I'm pretty sure you can just go onto the web and look up OS architectures, and you'll see general diagrams of how this stuff works with the kernel, the cores, the shells, and everything, and how all that works. And that's where all these different teams come in. What's happening now? So yeah, there's always been this push to make Windows more, quote unquote, modular, but they've had to do it in stages. You can't, if you did it all at once, it'd be a total chaos. But as we always pointed out, they're doing this not in isolation. They're building this OS while it's live, while people are using it on their computers. And that's the difficulty in all this. If they were building this privately, it would be a much easier experience for them, because they could just, they don't have to worry about breaking stuff that would be devastating for users. So they have to do all this while keeping the system working, basically. And that's pretty ingenious. But once it's completed, you can have a modular shell system, modular core component system, and of course, a single core that unites them all. And then the UWP system that allows apps to run across it. It's a very interesting system that gives a ton of flexibility for creating all sorts of different types of devices. And not just putting an OS on devices we know of today. Everybody knows laptop, tablet, phone, and then like a PC or like a hub. But there's no reason why there couldn't be different types of devices and hardware out there. It's up to the imagination of what people can do. But no one's going to go and create wild new hardware if Windows or any OS can't run on it. So you got to kind of give them the tools to do that. And that's where creativity, I believe, happens. And so, I don't know, we can see some really cool stuff coming out of this. Windows 10 on ARM, of course, is going to be one, kind of aspect of this. It will definitely play a part in it going forward.
Yeah, and I saw people getting confused at the fact that Microsoft has already said, but Windows 10 is already one or OS. Yes and no, the one core is and the Universal Windows Platform is. But Windows 10, there's still many different versions of Windows 10.
It's like the outside and the inside, and now we're talking about the middle.
Right. There's still many different versions of Windows 10. Of course, you've got the Windows 10 desktop SKUs, such as Pro, S, Home. Then you've got Windows 10 Mobile, which is a different version of Windows 10, not a different SKU, because SKUs and variants, I believe they would refer to it internally, are different. Because a SKU is like, here's one kind of operating system we have that just has different limits and versions stuff. So Windows 10 Pro and Windows 10 S have limits. Windows 10 Home has more limits than Windows 10 Pro, for example. Windows 10 Mobile is a different variant of Windows 10. It has a whole different sort of UI and stuff, different functions altogether. Then there's Windows Server, there's Windows 10 IoT. They're all different variants. What Andromeda does is remove those variants. So there's no Windows 10 Mobile versus Windows Desktop. It's just Windows 10. And from there, you build up the features and functions you want for a certain device. I don't think this is going to be something consumers can configure. I think it's going to be Microsoft and OEMs that can say, right, we're building this device. Let's put this feature in. Let's put that feature in. And of course, we make it sound so simple there. It's not going to be that simple for these people. And we also don't know what modules they want to, what components they want to modularize. So we don't know, because I'm pretty sure Win32 will be sprinkled throughout Windows for eternity. I think Windows 10 or Windows itself just can't get away from that at this point. But because even Windows Mobile today has Win32 bits in it. It doesn't run Win32 programs, but it still has Win32 bits in it to make some of the Windows functions under the hood run. And that's just always going to be the case. But it can modularize a whole bunch of other stuff in the system that some devices don't need. For example, smartwatches again. So this is a very exciting project that I'm pretty sure will. I don't think Microsoft are going to actually advertise this as a feature that they're doing, because this is an internal platform for them to build Windows. But it does kickstart and help along their mobile efforts. So we understand that the initial introduction of Andromeda OS will be mobile focused, and as and is internally pegged to be ready sometime in 2018. So, for example, a theoretical Surface phone running Windows 10 built with Andromeda OS wouldn't be running Windows 10 Mobile or Windows 10 Desktop. It would be running Windows 10 with whatever components Microsoft deems fit. That may include Win32 program support, or it may not. It will depend on the kind of device Microsoft or hardware makers are planning to build. So that's kind of the general idea here. And then eventually...
with C-Shell, they could have a mobile... it could look like a mobile phone when it needs to, but shift to like a desktop view if it needs to as well.
Yeah, Andromeda OS and C-Shell, I wouldn't say they go hand in hand, but they definitely complement each other in the sense that they're both very modular, both very adaptable. And it just puts Windows on more devices, on smaller screens, on bigger screens, on new kind of devices that may not even exist today, but may do in 10 years. Windows today is very old. A lot of the under the hood stuff, even though they've done a lot to get rid of the old stuff as of late, it's still a very heavy operating system for smartwatches. Again, smartwatches continue to come up, like lightweight devices, and even low-end sort of Intel Atom devices. They're very slow. You can't say they're not. They can be very slow. And this should hopefully
and that's exactly the problem, right? I mean, it's the problem with the tablets and everything like that. The reason why they never caught on. And you can make a strong argument. I had this example before, which is like I had that Lenovo ThinkPad tablet a few years ago. It was an 8-inch one. It was really high resolution display, and it was really powerful. It looked awesome, but it was running full Windows 10, and which means I could install Win32 desktop apps on it, but it wasn't practical because it was super tiny, and those apps don't have touch controls. Now, you can be like, well, you could output that to a larger display and add a keyboard, and I get a full PC. True, but that's not how most people are going to use it. Now, someone's asking in comments about, well, how are customers going to know the difference then? And it's a good question. At the same time, it's already been answered. The long-term solution here is UWP. I've said it before. That is their platform going forward. I know people are like, they don't even believe in it. Support. It's nonsense. That's going to be the common denominator here between all their SKUs, all the versions of Windows is UWP. Now, on desktop and laptop, of course, you're going to still need Win32. And that's where will stay there. And I think eventually the pro version of Windows, once the UWP system gets big enough, once Centennial apps get in the store and all this kind of stuff, and you can kind of get away from this idea of, well, of course, Centennial apps still need Win32 subsystem, but this idea of, shifting to a pure UWP, which is still far out. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It won't happen in a year or two. I think we're still talking 5 years as this platform continues to evolve. But that is the goal. They want to get as far away from the Win32 stuff as possible because it's, as Zach pointed out, extremely heavy. It weighs down stuff. And it resulted in having tablets that looked cool, looked like full computers that were just not a very good user experience. So how do you make a tablet that has like a better UI, can run UWP apps, and it's lighter and doesn't kill the battery, right? So you bring in all this ARM stuff, you bring in C-Shell, you bring in Andromeda, and you make an OS that looks like Windows, runs UWP, but is a much lighter system that gives you all the benefits of like a smartphone and a tablet.
It's like iOS or iPad is Mac OS under the hood, right? It's just a much lighter version of Mac operating system. And that question about how will consumers know is a great one. And I have asked people about this internally, and I haven't heard anything concrete back about how they are going to handle that. I imagine that there will be guidelines. So if certain features fall into specific categories, which would then make a SKU or an edition that you can label it as. So Windows 10 Pro may have, the group policy. And so therefore it's a pro version of Windows 10. And I don't imagine that they're going to get rid of the SKUs. I mean, they could if they really wanted to, which would be nice, I guess. But then again, it does cause a confusion thing regarding what device has what features. But I imagine, so desktop such as Pro and Windows 10 stuff, I don't imagine they'll be going away. And the Andromeda OS stuff itself won't be coming to desktop or Xbox until later. It's for the initial introduction of the Andromeda platform will be for mobile-like type devices. So, yeah, it is a very good question. As I said, I personally would imagine, this is just me speculating, it would be based on guidelines and certain features fall into certain categories, and therefore
they may fall back to the screen size thing.
Maybe that, yeah, it could be that as well.
Devices 10 inches and above that have a keyboard, run the full Windows 32 with desktop abilities, where devices 8 inches or smaller or something like that run, this, version that does have Win32 but full UWP. So yeah, there's definitely, they'll have to kind of figure that out. None of this is easy, but they need to break from the legacy stuff as much as they possibly can without, of course, undercutting their own business. So stuff like enterprise hospitals will always have access to the pro version of Windows or Enterprise Edition, where it has everything they need, all the legacy tools that'll be there. But we're focused here on the consumer aspect and also enterprise, where they want to create maybe small watch devices that run Windows and can tap into the important aspects of device management that companies may need. I don't know. It's an interesting journey, and it's tough to explain to audiences because at least our audience cares. Of course, I think the greater world is oblivious to all this stuff, as they should be, right? But I don't know. We'll start to see more devices. I think Windows 10 on ARM will be the first step into this new direction of let's see what new devices can be created with some of these new changes in architectures that'll happen. That will facilitate even more as Andromeda and Seashell stuff comes online in 2018. It's going to be an interesting next 2 years, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the TLDR for the Andromeda OS stuff is essentially what it is. It allows Windows to be installed on a wider variety of devices without being based on specific pre-existing product variants. As a result of this, Windows itself can become smaller depending on the device. The OS itself can be built faster, internally of course, and devices won't be encumbered by components and features they don't actually need, speeding up overall performance in the process on smaller or less capable devices. So it's a good thing all around. Of course, Microsoft can decide to cancel this project internally at any time, and even if they don't, I don't think they're ever going to get on stage one day and say, "Hey, we now build Windows with Andromeda OS." I don't think this is something they're going to be marketing to anybody. It's just an under the hood thing that they're doing internally that will make Windows easier to build for engineers internally. Because Windows today still takes a long time to build. It takes, I think, a day. Once they hit the build now button, it takes, I think, 24 hours before that build's ready to actually run on a system. So. Yeah, this is
the way they'll sell this will be through devices, I think.
Oh yeah.
They'll show like a crazy new kind of device that runs Windows, and you're gonna be like, wait, how is that? Wow, that's running all that.
Yeah, and you'll know.
Yeah, and they'll show the store and UWP apps, and that's that. And it makes sense, right? If you have a device that's like say 5 inches or 6 inches or something on your watch. The last thing in your mind is probably like, can I run Photoshop on it?
No, exactly. You don't want full Windows doesn't work everywhere. People need to understand it. Even on a phone, I don't think full Windows works on a phone. I know people would like to be able to run Photoshop on their phone. Sure, I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I really wouldn't. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, that's the reason why iOS has caught on so much. As much as we joke around about its childlike interface, there's a reason why that caught on with consumers who are not heavily invested in technology, but they want to be a part of that connected world, right? So you need big buttons and hit me, that was the thing with the iPhone. It was like, we're just going to give them one button and that's it. Yeah. And even that, apparently, I think the legend goes was they were trying to they didn't want one button. And now they kind of, I guess, realized that dream with the iPhone 10. But yeah.
I mean, this concept isn't a new one. When Microsoft already has a version of Windows 10 today that is componentized into sort of specific packages. Windows 10 Mobile, for those who don't know, is handled via separate packages. It's not just one ISO that they give to OEMs and they say, "Hey, preload that onto the phone."
I think too, right?
I wouldn't know about IT, but I do know about Windows Mobile. And basically, what that does when an OEM requests to build a Windows 10 Mobile device, when they did back in the day, Microsoft would say, "Okay, here's everything you need," and they'd lay out the entire operating system in separate packages, which has different features and functions. So, for example, if an OEM wants to build a Windows 10 Mobile device with Continuum, you would include the Continuum package. If you didn't, you wouldn't include the Continuum package. Hence why the Lumia 650, for example, doesn't have Continuum. If you preload that Continuum package onto that device, even though Microsoft says it's not supported, it still works. It's still a function that works. It's just it's a modular. Windows Mobile is modular in that instance, where you just preload packages on and off, and they're just basically taking that idea and bringing it to all of Windows 10, and that's very exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I think Windows IoT has changed a bit too. IoT used to be about Windows without a user interface, but now we saw devices at CES that ran Windows IoT that had a user interface. It looked just like Windows.
Yeah, because I imagine they built the app. Oh, no, yeah. No, you're right. You are right, yeah.
Well, although I think that was... Yeah, I don't know really what that was. It might have been like... Because it was a prototype kind of thing, but Yeah, that's an example of, I think, of how this stuff can kind of be. Someone asked, but aren't live tiles just giant buttons? No, they're functional. That's the difference. And on the iPhone, those icons do nothing, and it's infuriating. It's like that rare app you get, like a weather app, that's like, we're going to just hijack the notification bubble and we'll just put the temperature there. And it's just like, that's as close as you get to a live tile. Whereas live tiles are up to the developer to put whatever they want on there, including multiple sides. So it flips and rotates around. They can bring down images, data, all that kind of stuff. So no, they're very different. Live tiles are tiles that have real information on them. That's why we all like it so much. It's useful.
I saw a few people read the Andromeda OS article that I'd written. You should read it, by the way. It's got a lot of words in it. And some people were just like, yeah, but Microsoft has been making to make Windows modular for a long time. Yeah, this is the next steps in that. They wasn't just going to stop at like 50% modularity, wherever it is, and say, hey, we're done now. No, they've got to continue making it so until it's as modular as it can possibly be. And Andromeda OS is the next step in that. It's just because they've been working on this kind of stuff for years doesn't mean that they can't continue working on it.
Well, and like, as we said, the modularity thing, C Shell is about modularity in the shell, the visible parts of the UI. Core was what underlies it all. So it's one core. That's what's shared across all the devices. What we're talking about now are the internal components that link everything, the middle section. And UWP is the platform, the software that you can write, that connects it, runs those apps. So when you talk about modularity, there are multiple components to an operating system and its ecosystem, which is what UWP is, that need to be modular as well. And yeah, Windows has been working towards that, but this is the next step there. And it's a big step. It's such a big step, people. If you don't think it's a big step, it has its own code name. like this wasn't something we made up with, like the Andromeda name. It's called Andromeda because it's a big project internally. So don't tell me it's not a big deal or, they've always been doing it. No, this is new. This is something they've been working on.
I'm told that all the documents internally get updated very often, all the time. In fact, they're working on this all the time internally. Also, I've lost train of thought. Never mind. I completely forgot what I was going to say.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We'll see more of this stuff in the coming weeks and months, I suppose. Hopefully 2018.
This is very exciting stuff, seriously. Like, this is what I was going to say, I remember now. If this confuses you or you don't understand it, don't worry about it. This isn't something you're going to ever have to worry about. This is for more Microsoft internally and OEMs rather than you guys. All this does for you, the only benefit that Andromeda OS does for you is it makes it so Windows can run on more devices than before.
Yeah. Well, this is always the problem where you give people the sneak peek behind the curtain. It's it's like we're often talking about stuff that's coming down the road, and we're always going to be doing that because this is just a never-ending thing in technology. But the problem there is people always have this like, oh, got it. You get used to the fact you have a 2.5-pound laptop that gets 10 hours of battery life with a 4K display or something like that. You get used to that stuff exists. It's like, okay, now what? Meanwhile, you don't appreciate the stuff you have in front of you. Like, I'm still in awe. Like, I'm looking at, I still use a Surface laptop every day. I'm still in awe of like how thin its display is, despite being a full touch display. Like, that gets lost on people, the fact that they managed to do that. So there's like, we get used to this technology in front of us. And so it feels like it's never complete because as soon as we get something, we're always, okay, but what's next? What's next? And so when you look at the world that way, you always feel a little bit unsatisfied because it's like, okay, you told me about C Shell and Andromeda, but where is it now? But in 2019, I'm sure Zach and I will be right here talking about another new project and another new thing that Microsoft is doing. And, it's just going to keep going like that.
Yeah, but we always talk about what's coming next. And that's just what we do. If you don't like it,
well, let's talk about what's here now. Actually, it's old.
What's here a long time ago?
The Xbox Media Remote. This came out in 2014. We reviewed it. I have one. It's actually a really nice remote. It's tiny. It has this nice soft touch rubber feel to it. It has LED lights that only come on when there's motion in the controller. So when you pick it up, it lights up. It's smart. It controls your Xbox if you run your cable box through your Xbox, it could control the volume and channels for that as well. If you have a receiver, like I do, connected to your Xbox, it can control the volume of your receiver for your surround sound. Sounds good. It's also faster than having to turn on your controller all the time, which is always a problem because controllers time out and you have to launch it, wait for it to light to blink, and it comes back on. Now you can change the channel. That's why I use the media remote. I just want to change the channel now. But it's not all good. It uses an IR blaster, which is fine. That's a standard technology. Your cable remote, your AV receiver does IR. Everything uses IR. It uses not a lot of battery. It can stay on all the time. You don't need to boot your controller unless you have a Logitech Harmony, and then you have to do. But the problem here is the IR sensor on the Xbox One S, at least, and the One original, I can't vouch for the One X yet, is tiny. And so I often find myself, and you can't see me if you're not watching this live, but I find myself like having to angle my pointer, the remote at the Xbox to get the channel to change. And for people who hide the Xbox, you're out of luck. You can't. If you followed my Hide It article I did a few weeks ago where you put the Xbox behind the TV mounted to the wall, you can't really use this remote because there's no IR, it's line of sight, as they say. The other thing is, why doesn't this thing have a microphone in it yet? And I get in 2014, okay, maybe not, but here we are 2017. They got rid of Connect. Now, I like to Connect. I like the idea behind it. I feel like they had kept, to show you how far Connect has evolved, what's in the new iPhone 10 is essentially Connect. Apple famously bought the team behind Connect, the technology behind it, in 2013. And what you see in the iPhone 10 is the culmination of that, which goes to show you, by the way, just because a company buys another company doesn't mean 6 months or a year later you're going to see a product from them. That took Apple, 4 years to make a product from that. But what you have in the iPhone 10 is basically what the Connect does, just it's the distance obviously is going to be shorter. So I feel like if they kept evolving Connect at this point, they could have made it really tiny and done some really incredible stuff. But fine. Microsoft got rid of Connect because it drove up the price. They got killed by Sony because of it. Game developers didn't leverage it enough. And finally, consumers just frankly did not use it a lot. So, okay, fine, get rid of it. Why not put the microphone into a controller, either the Xbox controller or the media remote? It's not rocket science. The only thing I actually use Connect for would be like Xbox pause, Xbox play, Xbox volume up. Nothing's better when you have pizza in your hands and you're sitting down. It's like you can just control your TV with your voice. It was a really clever thing. And I don't know why they didn't put a microphone into the controller. Amazon. Oh, and I just heard my Cortana just turn on. That's funny. I was going to say Amazon, with their Fire TV, now has Alexa built into its controller, and it works very well, actually. You could just be like, hey, Alexa, find me a movie starring Mr. T, and it'll find it, and it'll surface everything, and you could just click and watch the movie. Apple, of course, has Siri built into theirs, and now it has 4K TV and all that. It's like, I don't get, you take away Connect, the number one way you can interact with Cortana on your Xbox and TV, and you don't give users an alternate. Like, we're all not going to put gaming headsets on to talk to Cortana. So it's like why not just have a Cortana button? You just hold it down and talk to the TV. Like, they have this problem. The biggest issue with Cortana and AI in general is you need people to use it to collect data to make it better. So it behooves Microsoft to have Cortana on as many devices as possible and people using it as much as possible. If you're not going to give them a tool to actually access it, like I do not use Cortana at all anymore on my Xbox because I don't have Kinect connected to it anymore. So it's like, what's the point of all this? Like, just put a microphone into the damn remote. Give me a little Cortana button. It's advertising. You get people to use it more. It's baffling. And I just don't know why they don't put in Xbox Wireless Connect into a remote too. Because if you have an Xbox controller, that thing works anywhere. You can put the Xbox behind the TV and it works. Now, it drains the battery. And I get that. So just make the controller rechargeable. Like, I have a $300 Logitech Harmony controller. and I have to recharge it every 2 to 3 days. It has its own little stand, and it puts in there, and it looks kind of nice. It's annoying when it goes dead, but hasn't stopped Logitech from selling a lot of those things. So it's like, I feel like I understand why Microsoft was like, we focus too much on the living room stuff. We're getting killed by Sony. Let's go all in on gaming. I get that. Could you still have a little tiny, like maybe like 10 people, like 15 people whose job is just to focus on the living room stuff? And now all hardware is under Panos's, team. So the new Xbox One X is made by the Surface team, basically. Like, have them make a remote. Like, if any group could pull that off and make an awesome remote, it's those guys. Like, I don't know.
I feel like we'd be having a very different conversation right now if gamers had warmed to Microsoft's original vision for the Xbox One, which, let's remember, back in May 2013, I think it was, basically their entire conference was, it does TV, it does entertainment, and also a bit of gaming. And that was what basically killed it, and which is why the Xbox One is second, not first, over PS4 these days, is because gamers are like, hang on a minute, you're focusing on telly? We don't care about that.
Right.
Which is unfortunate because Microsoft had a really nice vision for what it wanted to do with the Xbox One originally. It was Xbox One because it was the one device for your entire, media center.
Right.
And that they've sort of pushed away from that as of late. Also, originally it had like DRM lockdown, which I know sounds bad, but it was going to enable a whole bunch of new possibilities for digital content, such as being able to share digital games among your friends and stuff. That would have been great. They took that all away because gamers were like, hey, always on console sounds terrible.
You remember that? Oh my God, could you imagine having your console on all the time? Oh, that's terrible. It's just I know. But it basically is right now. I can't play Destiny if I'm not online. It doesn't work. Like, a lot of the games are... we went to a world where all of a sudden, in the gaming world, where it's like, oh, it's a single multiplayer campaign. No, forget that. The world right now is all online multiplayer. Mm-hmm. Like, now as a guy who likes to just play single player games, I'm like out of luck, right? So now we move to this world where it's all online multiplayer. And so it has to be connected all the time. And it's just like, and no one cares, So yeah, that's super frustrating.
Yeah, it does. It sucks. So we can just blame the gamers. The gamers' fault.
Yes.
Our Xbox One isn't Xbox One, it's Xbox games because of gamers.
Young males are ruining everything. I'm going to get a lot of blowback from the gaming community now. They're going to
Who cares? Oh my God, they're gamers. That probably sounds really rude.
It's going to be like the Foursquare people who came after me. Yeah, so I just feel like, like I said, I totally understand. And I think Phil Spencer's done a great job with the Xbox stuff. I really like the new dashboard. I think it looks great, it functions well. I like what they're doing. I just feel like, can't they just give a little love to this stuff? Like, is it all or nothing? It doesn't really have to be that much. Like, I know a lot of people have talked about built-in TV recording and all that, and it kind of does do that now. If you do get an external antenna, you can do that, do live TV recording. It's still not as convenient as the cable stuff, but I do feel like Amazon Fire TV, the Apple TV stuff, it's starting to get ahead in some ways. And it's not because they've done anything crazy. All the things they've done, Microsoft has the components for. You have a console, check. They got the hardware. It's already done. It's millions of people's hands already. You have AI voice assisted Cortana, assistant cloud service named Cortana. Sure, we got that. You have engineers who can make this happen. Yep. You have hardware people who design awesome products. Yep. It's like, okay, so make me a new remote. Put this in there. And people were like, well, Cortana isn't available everywhere. Okay, so sell the remote in the US alone. Microsoft does that. There are ways around this, and the more people use Cortana, the wider it'll go to different regions. I just feel like, I don't know.
Microsoft actually needs to work on Cortana on Xbox quite a bit anyway, because right now,
yes,
it's not as good as just using these standard Xbox commands, because it has to connect to the internet and it takes longer. So if you want to do volume up, originally you just say Xbox volume up, it'll do it because it's all handled in-house on the system. Now if you do it with Cortana, you say, hey Cortana, volume up, and he says, okay, let me connect to the internet, make sure that's a command I can do, send back the data, turn the volume up. It's like, you need Cortana needs to do...
it really should have obviously both, right? It should be for volume up, change channel, it should recognize those commands as being local, so it doesn't go to the cloud. It just does them and it's fast, versus, you're asking it to go search for something. Like, but I should be able to like have a Cortana remote and just, my remote hit the button and be like, hey, Cortana, find me movies directed by Steven Spielberg. And then it just populates, here's what's on Netflix, here's what's on Hulu, here's what's on Xbox, Microsoft Movies and TV, here's on what other service, Sling, like it already does pull in that information. Like, I know that I'm glossing over, like, this stuff is hard to do, but you're Microsoft. Like, you have the ability to make this happen. Apple is making it happen. Amazon's making it happen. Like, are we really just going to let those two companies like just run away with this stuff because you just never put the pieces together? Like, it's just kind of infuriating. Because now I'm back to using the controller to change my channels and switch between. Because I cut cable. I only use Hulu and Sling right now, and Netflix. And so I'm always and it's a pain now. If I want to change the channel, I gotta hold down the Xbox button, let it turn on. Okay, now I can change. Like, who does that? Like, imagine every time you went to go use your cable remote, you had to wait, 5 seconds for the cable remote to turn on. Like, that's not a good experience, So it's like, that's why they made the remote. Okay, well, make the remote better. This isn't the remote right now is $29, I think, $25. It's like not an expensive accessory. Shoot, they can make a $60 or $80 one. They make a mouse that costs $80. It's like, come on. Like, and Logitech sells a $300 remote. So it's just like, there's room. You have wiggle room here for this stuff to make this happen.
It's a shame, really. It really is a shame. I mean, Microsoft is still shipping Xbox Ones with 2 HDMI ports for the purpose of plugging your telly into it. They still do that. Even Scorpio has it. So they still care about the TV side in some capacity. So just make it better.
Yeah.
Simple as.
Yep.
All right. Let's move on to our very last story of the day. Microsoft retail stores. Talk about stores quite a lot in this episode. Microsoft is finally opening a Microsoft store outside of the US, and I think are there any in Canada? I think there might be one in Australia, but they're finally opening one in Europe, in London specifically, which is very, very exciting for me and many of the others.
Are you really Europe though?
Yeah. Well, they're opening it in the UK. There you go. Get over it.
Okay, yes.
They're opening it at Regent Street, just a few doors down from the Apple store, which I've actually been to. It's a very nice Apple store there. That's where I got my iPhone 7 from that App Store. And yes, then Microsoft, as in a predictable fashion, are opening their store just a few doors down, direct competition, and it's going to be very exciting. I imagine it will be their flagship store for the UK and Europe because there's only one right now. And they're going to sell, what they normally do in the US stores. Surface, third-party hardware. They'll be able to show off all their new products and mixed reality and accessories and whatever else. I'm sure they'll do launch parties there and giveaway parties, I think they do that sometimes in the US stores as well. Xbox, everything Microsoft does, it'll be there. And it'll be really exciting.
And from what I understand, not a surprise at all, this is right next to the Apple store.
I did say that, yes.
Okay, yeah, and sorry, I don't know. I was looking at Twitter, but it's also apparently Apple headquarters or something like that is nearby too.
I don't know about the headquarters. I know their I think it's their flagship London store is a few doors down. Yeah, so this is really
there's
great.
A pattern here.
Yeah, I know.
I think they've opened 100 stores and they're all next to Apple stores. Sometimes, the mall nearby me, Natick, has its Apple, and then I think it's like clothing store, and then it's Microsoft. But yeah, I mean, the reason why they're not opening these stores, just all over the world instantly is because they're literally waiting for retail space to open next to Apple so they can build a store either across the street from it, next to it, or something like that. So that takes time. You got to wait for someone to go out of business or move and to seize that spot. It's a strategic move. I think it's a smart move, but obviously the downside is people are going to be waiting a long time for these stores to pop up. But I tell you, you wouldn't think Microsoft would, going into retail is a big deal, right? They make software.
Yeah.
Opening a retail store is like a whole other thing. But the Microsoft stores actually run very well. And it's better than even the online store, which is a separate entity, actually, which is unfortunate. You can't order something online and pick it up at the store and that kind of thing. Or I think you may be able to now, I don't know. But the returns are treated differently. But I like the stores because, and I always tell people, if you have one, near you to buy your product there. Because especially if you buy like a Surface or something, you have any problems, you just bring it there and they'll just take a look. Oh, okay, and they'll go in the back and get you a new one. No questions asked. They're very cool. The employees are very helpful. And it does, I think it does a lot of good for their marketing and brand name. They feature Dell and HP products there as well for their partners. Obviously a lot of Xbox and gaming stuff there. They also do, it's like Home Depot where they have little schools in there. So they have, if you buy a computer, you can go learn about how to use it. They have coding sessions for kids, which is pretty awesome. So your kids can go there, they play with Minecraft and they learn basic coding. It's all sorts of like cool community stuff they do there. They also do a lot of launch events, which are fun as well. So it's I'm really excited you guys can get it. So I'll have to come out there for the grand opening.
Yeah, I'm going to go. And you know what that means as well? It means I can finally line up overnight for product launches from Microsoft.
I haven't done a lot. The only time I've done a lineup was the original Surface launch. I was in New York City for that one.
I think everyone did that.
Yeah. Because I remember Panos was actually at the store signing people's Surfaces. It was pretty funny. But yeah, we're not doing that anymore. So sad.
But yeah, no, very, 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 very exciting for those in London and much of the UK. I'm sure it's going to be a very busy store considering there's only one of all of Europe. So,
well, they're also, they also have to choose the store and the location they know they can basically succeed in. That's very visible.
Regent Street is a very good place.
I'm not aware of any Microsoft stores closing due to poor business. That'd be really interesting. But, yeah, there we go. All right. Well, I guess that actually wraps it up. Just over an hour. Not too bad. Dan Rant wasn't too explicit this week, so that's pretty good. Next week, I don't know. I may be at Ignite. I may not. I literally have not decided. I have not decided.
It's literally a Monday.
I know. I'm pretty bad with this stuff. I'm leaning towards not going just because it's a lot of IT stuff, and we'll cover the news, but I don't know if I actually need to be there.
Have we been briefed on it yet? Are they going to brief us?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about. But it interferes with my gym schedule and everything. So I'm a creature of habit. We'll see, though. But don't worry, I'll be in San Francisco October 3rd, and there's definitely more stuff coming to the fall, folks. If you don't know, October is always a busy month, so there'll be a lot of cool stuff. But no Surface Book 2, so unfortunately don't expect that as far as we know. I don't think there's going to be a lot of big Surface news. I think, that story about Future Decoded was overhyped. I don't think there's going to be there's nothing major there. I still want to go to Future Decoded though, just because it's in UK. I can hang out with Zach and the team there, and so may just end up doing that anyway. But stay tuned for that. Next week I'll probably have a couple more reviews coming up for a couple. I think I'm going to probably do the HP Omen 15 laptop, which is a really nice gaming laptop. So I got to play around with that and a couple other things as well. Zach, any big stuff coming from you for next week?
I have a very secret thing coming next week. A review of a product that was never released. But
yes.
Yeah, I did mention it to you the other day. Yes, so that should be fun. I'm also going to be doing a full creators update walkthrough of the RTM build, all the features that are worth noting.
And you're also going to do eventually, when you get it, the music blade from the Surface that was launched years ago.
I'm going to remix some songs, and I'm also probably going to do mixed reality stuff as well.
Yeah, that'll be a fun story as well to cover. And so mentioned also Fitbit stuff. Yes, October. Yeah, those are finally shipping. I got mine on order. I think I have $500 worth of stuff coming from Fitbit. $300 of that is for the new one. I'll definitely be reviewing that for you guys for Windows 10 mobile users who are still around. But stay tuned for that. Overall, though, it should be very exciting. Now we'll go to our question and answer session. Thank you for joining us. If you don't know, we record this live Fridays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time at mixer.com/Windows Central, where you can watch our faces live and join in the conversation. Otherwise, you can listen to the stream. Also on Thursdays, we do Microsoft Gaming Libations with me, Zach, and Jez, our gaming editor. We've been doing a lot of Destiny lately. I still want to do more Destiny because it's addictive. And then also Saturday night, we do Paul's Gaming School, where he goes through a new game. So join us for that stuff. It's all a lot of fun. Thanks for joining, everybody. Take care.